Nick here, and welcome to my Doctor Who Series 11 ranking. This is the final conclusive ranking as of time of recording, which is Wednesday, January 23rd? January the 23rd, 2019. And I rewatched every episode from Doctor Who Series 11, from The Woman Who Fell to Earth to The Battle of Ranskoor Kolos, on my brand new Doctor Who Series 11 Blu-ray box set. Well, I say brand new, I've had it for 9 days, but, you know, 9 days is close enough. And I watched the first disc on the first day. I had it. As of now, this is the final list, and I had to quickly put an actual list together on the computer with all my Doctor Who rankings at the time of them being ranked when I made the list, with changes as I've been doing on the Retro channel, been going through them episode by episode from the start, and they've been changing a lot. Seasons 1 and 2 changed a little bit. Seasons 3's changed quite a bit. I'll be recording that tomorrow after I watch The War Machines later. Hopefully I will be. And then after that I can do Season 3's ranking on the Retro channel. As for now, I can do Series 11's on this channel now, so yeah. And yes, I'll be watching the episodes I've already reviewed just for completion, and if any, like Twice Upon a Time, for example, need to be redone, I've even considered doing Series 9 and a re-review of Twice Upon a Time out of order. So I watched these out of order as well, to be honest. Not the series out of order, I mean, as I'm doing from start to finish, from An Earthly Child to Resolution plus. For example, when I started it was up to Twice Upon a Time plus Series 11, and now at this point it's up to Resolution plus whatever comes next, depends on when we finish. Also, I've discovered earlier that I'm going to have to watch the ones I've got on Blu-ray on the telly, so those ones might take longer. Series 7 and 8. 8's ones. And 9's if that's not already done. So anyway. So, Series 11, I thought this was a great series, and rewatching it, even better. I thought it was okay, pretty good series when I originally watched it. The episodes, but rewatching them, it's really great. It's really fun, especially the first 3 episodes. They were really great to watch in order. It kind of dipped a little bit, and then rose up a little bit, and then dipped a bit further, and kind of ended slightly weakly. And then we got Resolution, which was a great great finish, technically, even though it's not the last episode, but it kind of helped finish off the series just afterwards, and feels really nice. So, without any further ado, Series 11. And the episodes are The Woman Who Fell to Earth, The Ghost Monument, Rosa, Arachnids in the UK, The Tsuranga Condrum, Demons of the Punjab, Kerblam, with an exclamation mark at the end, The Witchfinders, It Takes You Away, and The Battle of Ranskoor Kolos. So, starting off with number 10 was one that got better on the second viewing when I had to review it for the Universal's review of it, but on the third viewing wasn't that much better. I thought it was alright. Still thought it was a okay episode, but it's not amazing. And that is The Tsuranga Condrum. Yeah, I just don't think this is a great episode. I thought it was okay. Some of the characters are okay, but it's just not that good. I suppose it's more filler, really. It's more filler. It's the Boomtown of Series 11. There's actually a Boomtown reference in episode 10, by the way. But yeah, it's the Boomtown of Series 11. I might even think Boomtown's slightly better. So, Series 11 haters / not wanter viewers, be happy. Moving on to number 9. Now, this one some people like, lots of people don't, and and most of them would not like it for one particular reason towards the end of the episode. I'm leaning towards the not so like side, however, not because of the reason most people aren't so keen on it. This episode is It Takes You Away. Now, the reason most people don't like this is because the they believe the villain at the end is a frog, and they flipped out about that. I will say now it is not a frog. It just took that form for its talk with the Doctor at the end of the episode. It's not a frog all the time. It's infinite. It's, let's say, air, for example. It's air. It took the forms of Trina and Grace in the episode, and also the farmhouse and its garden outside. And then when the Doctor came to have her last chat with it at the end, it was in a kind of a white background, and it was a frog sitting on the chair. And the reason is actually stated there, because Grace likes frogs, so it took that form and with her voice. So, yeah, people, it's not a frog. It took the form of a frog, but the actual villain itself, I don't even know if you can actually count it as a villain. A bit like King James the First, it's complicated. /6th. Just King James then. A bit like King James in the previous episodes, it's complicated. Start off as a bit of an antagonist and then becomes more of a protagonist at the end. So, it's a bit like that, I guess. But the frog isn't its one and only form. Or have you not been paying attention for the rest of the episode? Probably not, to be honest. They probably fell asleep. To be honest, this is actually a slow and not so interesting one. It starts off thinking it's going to be like a horror mystery thriller, but then it just goes it gets very sci-fi and a bit confusing at some points. It's a bit more enjoyable on the rewatches, but it's not that amazing. But guys, don't flip over the fact it's a frog at the end, because that's the form it took for that one chat. It's not always going to be a frog. Maybe when the Doctor goes and sees it, it's like a frog sometimes. Maybe it'll take other forms in the future if it's coming back. Ed Hine is coming back to write an episode in Series 12, so I wouldn't be surprised. But that being said, doesn't necessarily mean it will be back. Mark Gatiss was coming back on Series 10, and he was having an idea for a Sleep No More sequel, but instead he actually wrote a second Ice Warrior story. So, and Robin Hood didn't turn up, or Charles Dickens, or Magpie, just referencing previous Mark Gatiss characters, written Mark as characters. Alex and Alex and George from Night Terrors, none of them turned up, so doesn't necessarily mean it will be back in an Ed Hine story, but that doesn't also mean it doesn't necessarily won't be. Might not even be an Ed Hine story, it might be Chris Chibnall or someone's. But, you know what, doesn't matter. Just saying, don't get too flipped over it, because it's just the temporary form of it. Okay, that's it from me. I actually thought that was a pretty good stuff. That was probably the best stuff in the story. And I thought originally the mysterious mystery stuff at the start on the first reading, but on rewatches, knowing what's actually happened, it's actually slow and a bit dull, but intentionally so, until you get to that sci-fi world, and then it becomes kind of not so necessary, apart from to show the emotional side towards the end as well. But that's about it. I've got to say on it. I've said my piece, hopefully. And both those two episodes were the stories I had to do on the Universals solo-y. Those were the ones I decided, I guess. Episodes 5 and 9. And boy, did I choose the wrong ones to do for the channel. I, of course, also took part in the joint member ones for episodes 1 and 10. But the solo ones were 5 and 9. And yeah, weren't the best ones. I got the weakest ones to do on, well, in my opinion. I know Matt wasn't the biggest fan of Ghost Monuments, which is one he did. One of the ones he did. Number 8 is actually one that was originally slightly higher, but I've lowered the score for it so that it can be, because the one that was originally lower than it, I rewatched and thought it's actually better than this one, but it had a lower score, so I'm lowering the other one's score to be at this level. I've done this for the 2018, film rankings, so yeah, I can do this. Number 8 is Arachnids in the UK. Now this one was alright. It's a bit of a fun, enjoyable B-movie-esque story after the hard-hitting Rosa. However, it's not a particularly well thought out story. The ending it feels like the ending is the weakest of all of the episodes. This side of Twice Upon a Time. In fact, it might even be weaker than some of the Series 10 stuff. I know lots of people complain about the Series 7 stories having bad endings, and yeah, I can see your points, Hyde particularly. But this one, just didn't. The ending just didn't feel. It didn't work. I mean, there's some bits that made sense, but it just didn't work. As for the rest of the episode, it was okay, but I like the mystery, and I like how it was a more environmental thing going on, like harking back to the John Pertwee era, and how it wasn't aliens, it was just mutated spiders due to the chemicals and the toxins with all the landfill waste with nowhere for it to go because the hotel's built on top. So, yeah, that was alright. Not really sure what the point of Diet Trump, aka Jack Robertson, but apart from being the hotel owner, I'm wondering if he's going to be a reoccurring character next year. It'll be 2020 when the series comes out, so I wouldn't be surprised. But then again, the elections are usually at the other end, so it might have been saved for the series after. Maybe they'll meet him on his campaign. Anyway, so Arachnids in the UK, it's okay. Anyway, moving on to number 7. Number 7 is the Battle of Ranskoor of Kolos. Not the worst nor the most disappointing Doctor Who season finale, certainly of the new series, and maybe even some of the classic stories ones. Not the worst, but it's the one that feels the least like certainly for the new series, the least like a season finale. There's some classic ones that do feel like a finale, like Armageddon Factor, Ultimate Trial of a Time Lord, The Ultimate Foe, Revenge of the Cybermen in a way, although Terror to Autons might have fared better. Not to Autons, Terror to Zygons, and Green Death. Anytime there's a regeneration and survival, I say anytime regeneration, that's the War Games. Yes, that certainly would be a series finale. Feels like a series finale. That's Planet of Spiders, Logopolis, and those ones. They all feel like season finales. And Shadow, I think, may have felt like a season finale if it was complete. But most of them, and maybe Invasion of Time, a couple of them would feel like finales, whilst others would just feel like final stories of that season. Just another episode, really, just another story. It's just that it so happens to be the end, like most of the Hartnell ones, and some of the Tom Baker ones, I suppose. As for new series, they've all, up to prior to this one, all felt like final stories in the season. Like it's been heading somewhere. There's character arcs, story arcs, or overarching themes, or just a big story at the very end, just to wrap it all up. And this one doesn't really have any of that, apart from maybe the stuff, just having to have another battle against Tim Shaw, as he's the only reoccurring villain in this series from the first episode. So, yeah, this one is probably just the least finale out of all the new series ones. Because it feels like a normal episode. Lots of people are actually saying Resolution feels more like the finale because that was a big epic with the Daleks. And also I've heard that It Takes You Away was, by some people, consider it more of a finale because Ryan calls Graham his granddad by that point. It's kind of brought Graham's emotional story full circle by that point. But that's expanded more on in this one and in Resolution, and the same for Ryan's and their relationship. So I can see why this one was put last, because they needed a finale where they've kind of finally Ryan and Graham have connected, and now they've staying connected, and they're battling Tim Shaw again, then they can save the Daleks for the Dalek for the New Year special. But I can see why lots of people would consider that the finale, and yeah, that does feel like it is a very special episode. That one has a bit of a different feel to the previous ones, save for perhaps the one who fell to Earth. But more on that later. But this one's just not that finale. It just doesn't feel that way. Maybe if there was more at stake. Maybe if there was more Stenza as well. But what we got was alright. It was pretty good. It was fun, enjoyable, lots of good moments, and developed Ryan Graham's characters more. Although I would like to see more of Yaz's character developed next series, if that's okay, please. I've heard that's going to be the case, but he's a bit late, so hopefully better late than never, I suppose. But still, hopefully it will deliver. Moving on to number 6. Number 6 is the Witchfinders. Now, I've put this as my least favourite of the historical episodes, I should say, well, rather pseudo-historicals. They're all pseudo-historicals still. But because this time round the alien stuff doesn't quite work. I mean, if you were to say it's all witchcraft, then all of this stuff is witchcraft, then yeah, that's disrespectful to the witches. So aliens would have been a bit more way to go. But the way that they've treated the aliens is just super typical. Your general mud-like looking creature aliens with a deep voice who are kind of warlike aliens, like the Sontarans or the what's their one? The Dravens or the Maya. Just another band of warlike creatures with a CGI design that looks a bit awkward. Then so do some of the practical ones. So. Not just this series. So, with deep voices, so, I don't even know if that's actually a woman voicing the Morwax Queen. It might be a man again. So, yeah, it's kind of gone as a bit typical there. It might have been better if they, well, actually, it would have been better if they just did a pure historical story. The way it was handled prior to the reveal of the aliens makes sense and is done okay. The whole stuff about the Doctor being tried for being a witch, not a fan, but story purposes I can see why it was done, and it probably would have been done eventually. Same with the, it would have been done at some point, witches or some sort of thing. Alan Cumming is probably the best thing in the episode. He does a brilliant performance as King James the 1/6th. England 1st, Scotland 6th. He's technically both at this point. So, we'll just call him King James. And he is fantastic. And not just when he's hamming it up, but when he's also being dead serious. Right, when he's talking about his parents. It's really great. But overall, I don't think the companions got that much to do either. I mean, apart from maybe doing some investigating and talking, and Ryan being King James' eye candy, if you know what I mean. And then there wasn't really that much for them to do. It was mostly the Doctor show, to be honest. But overall, it's decent. It's not offensive to those witches who have died, but it's not particularly amazing. Number 5. This time we're getting to the really good episodes. Last time we've had okay to pretty good episodes up to this point. Now we got to the really good episode, The Ghost Monument. I've always enjoyed this one, but there isn't a huge amount going on. There's enough to justify its position here, but not too much. I mean, it does have this kind of a slow pace feel, but at the same time it works well with the story it has to do, and it looks so nice, and you can show off the place. It's very nice and good. It's just a bit of a slow paced story. It just takes its time, but at some places that's good, in some places not so much. It can feel like a bit of a waste of time. They could do other stuff. But it's a good, decent second story that follows on from the first episode and does a really good job. And yeah, it does. It's basically both. It's basically filler as well, but not the same type as the Tsuranga Conundrum. It's as well as following up from The Woman Who Fell to Earth. It also feels like a journey to get to the next stage of the adventure as well. So yeah, it feels pretty good. And I like how the crew are working together, plus with the two supporting characters, one of whom, the actor of which took this really nice picture that's been used on this steelbook. Was his name Crasco? Oh, no. Crasco was the villain in Rosa. But yeah, it's still really good. And Art Malik does a nice performance as the guy in the tent. He's technically the main villain, besides those creatures that try to attack them in the episode. But other than them, and mentions to the Stenza being kind of forcing the scientists to create these weapons, such as these the creatures that attack them in the episode. Besides all that, he's technically the main antagonist. But besides him, it's those rat creatures that are threatening because they try to strangle what's his name, the guy played by the actor who took this picture. Yeah, that's probably why the episodes are 12. I think I mentioned this in my unboxing, but all of the episodes apart from Tsuranga Conundrum are rated 12 in the UK, although disc 1 of this set is rated PG in Ireland, so the first 3 episodes are probably that, and then the rest, maybe exception of Tsuranga, is rated 12 in Ireland. But yeah, that's the Ghost Monument. It's decent. It's enjoyable. It's not amazing, but it's good. It's good. My boy. Okay, number 4 is a really fun, really enjoyable, and just all-out adventure. Kerblam. I think this one's a really fun, really enjoyable sci-fi story that takes a look at the Amazon and online retailers in a kind of a positive light, but also saying that their systems can easily be abused by humans. For example, in this time round, we got this guy who's kind of like 10% isn't enough. 10% of human workers isn't enough, and he's abusing the system to make it look bad. So, for example, of course, according to the planet, that's the rule is now has to be a minimum of 10%. So, yeah, thankfully at the end they're boosting it to 50%. Yeah, but it's still a fun, enjoyable story, and unlike, say, It Takes You Away, there actually is a pretty great mystery, and after watching it, you can connect the dots and realise the connections for most of the stuff. It's really great. It's really fun. It's not completely perfect, though. It's got a few issues, but I still think it's a really fun and really enjoyable story that is a good one for the current times. So, yeah, this is a good episode. Number 3. Now, number 3 is the other story not to feature a title card at the start or title sequence. The Woman Who Fell to Earth. The first episode of the series, and this was originally lower. Kerblam had originally been 3rd before this rewatch. Then I think it would have been Woman, then Ghost Monument, then Resolution, and then the rest as it was, minus Arachnids and Battle swapped. But then after all of these watchings, Woman Who Fell to Earth, when I watched that, I watched the first 3 episodes on the day I got my box set, like I said, and wow, just blown away by it. I've seen it 2 times previously, but rewatching it, it was so good. This is how you do I mean, all of the post-regeneration stories of the new series have been great. New series does post-regeneration stories better than regeneration stories, in my opinion. And the classic series do the regeneration stories better than the post-regeneration stories, in my opinion. examples, classic series, regeneration story, you've got, I liked Planet of the Spiders. I thought Robot was good, but I thought Planet of the Spiders was better. If you want a better example, Case of Androzani, amazing. Twin Dilemma, not amazing. For new series, whilst Parting the Wizard was fantastic, and Christmas Invasion was great, but nowhere near as good. Well, not too far. Well, no, Parting the Wizard was something special. But then, what about Time of the Doctor and Deep Breath? I preferred Deep Breath to Time of the Doctor. I also prefer The 11th Hour, which is a great story, to The End of Time. And now I prefer The Woman Who Fell to Earth to Twice Upon a Time. And I think most people who are continuing to watch Series 11 would agree. Along with also maybe the end of ones who watched post David Tennant would agree on the 11th Hour being better than End of Time bit. So... yeah, I don't know if the rule for the classic series always applies, but for the new series it's applied since the end of 10, start of 11's eras. Like I said, Parting of the Ways is something special. It's just a special story. I think it's the best of the New Who stories, besides Dave the Doctor, but that's just my opinion. And the other stories in my top... is number 5, and the other stories besides Day are classics. But anyway, Woman Who Fell to Earth is... definitely a great introduction to the new Doctor, and I might even put it above Christmas Invasion as well as Deep Breath after this rewatch. Originally it was 4th out of the first episodes for a Doctor, but now I'd probably put it 3rd. I still think Rose and the 11th Hour are better, but then again, Rose had to introduce you to the entire show reintroduce the entire show, not just the Doctor. Whilst this is just reinventing the show again, as opposed to reintroducing. So, didn't have as big of a task as Rose. It's a shame that one wasn't longer. But, yeah, Woman Who Fell to Earth. It's really fun, really good, and has some great moments, and it's really nice in some places. And the characters work so well with each other, and yeah, the team's just building. And for the first time in a while, a character you've actually come to know and care for dies, and it has impacts for the rest of the series. As does having Kim Shaw get away almost with what he's tried to do, because that brings up consequences at the end of the series. So yeah, Woman Who Fell to Earth. It's a brilliant reintroduction to this. Well, not reintroduction, reinvention of the series for the new era. So, yeah, anyone who hasn't checked it out yet, I strongly advise you to check it out. Especially if you're someone who was going to consider stopping at Twice Upon a Time, and once you get to Twice Upon a Time, you realise, or at least in your opinion, you think it's bad. A lot of people would agree with you there. So, you don't carry on, you end on a unhappy note. You end on a pretty poor point, and you would have wished you would have stopped with the Doctor Falls. Well, if you go up to Twice Upon a Time, I strongly recommend you go to at least this episode before stopping, and if you think you want to carry on, please go on. But if you want to stop, actually Ghost Monument might be a better place to stop if you want to find out what happens next, but at least go on to this one if you're stopping at Twice Upon a Time, but you're not happy with that. I generally advise / recommend. No, that's the same thing. So I would recommend you go on to at least this episode and check it out and see how it is. It's at least I would say I agree with Calvin Dyson. You checking out 3 episodes of a show before considering doing the rest of it, and that's a good idea. But I know lots of people are very not so willing to do the era, so 1 would probably be enough unless they like it, or 2 if they wanted to see what happened next. So yeah, but I strongly advise you to go into at least this episode if you haven't seen any post Twice Upon a Time, especially if you weren't so happy on the place you left off. Yeah. If you got to the Doctor Falls and decided to stop there because you've been warned about Twice Upon a Time, then that's probably a good place then you'll probably be okay, unless you're curious about that and this. But anyway, so that's it from The Woman Who Fell to Earth. There's 2 more episodes, and I decided to raise this next one. Well, actually, I was considering raising it to a 10. I don't know if I would, though, because there's one thing that stops it from being a 10. Oh, to hell with it, I'll do it anyway. The Chase got a 10 out of 10. So, and that had a few issues. I'll give this one a 10 out of 10 as well. This number 2 is Demons of the Punjab. Now, my one problem with it is that the aliens are in it. There's aliens, the demons, or at least that's what they perceive to be at the start. And they're making all these threats to begin with, and then later on you find out they're there to oversee the dead. That's a nice idea, but why do you have to make them look like the threat? In fact, the real threat is humanity. And this is not the first time this season. Of course, it's not the first time ever, but it's still. So I think it would have been better if the aliens were either just made to look like good guys from the start, and so in other words, not to be made to look like the ones behind all of this, the death of the Sikh and causing all the problems, or not to have them at all and have it a complete historical, full historical. Yeah, that would have worked. A historical around Yaz's family, basically being an example of what was happening at the time, families being torn apart by the partition and the creation of Pakistan and India. Well, I think India was already created, but okay, the creation of Pakistan and lands being lost to India. And yes, you can technically see both sides of the argument, and it's done really well. It's done really great, and the emotion is amazing. Oh, this episode's ending. Oh, wow. After such a great build-up, minus the alien stuff, but such great build-up, and it pays off really well, and that Indian version of the theme is beautiful. It's lovely. It's a great episode. Yeah, I'll give this one a 10 out of 10 now. I gave it a 9 originally, but now I would give, after rewatching it, it would be a 10. It's just that the aliens were kind of a bit of an issue at that point. But like I said, I gave The Chase, a Season 2 story, by the way, a 10 out of 10, despite having some issues with that one, but I still really enjoyed that one a lot, so I gave that a 10 when I gave the review on the Retro channel, and it came number 1 on the Season 2 ranking. But what's come number 1 on this ranking? Well, this story has always been a 10 out of 10 since I first watched it, but it's also the one I found was going to be the most difficult to rewatch. And it was, but it was also still a really good watch anyway. So number 1 is, of course, Rosa. This story is amazing. If you've seen the film Selma, it's a bit like that, but set a decade earlier, obviously. And it's really hard-hitting. It shows full on how nasty times they were back in 1950 Southern American states in the 1950s. If I was an American, I'd be ashamed of myself, especially if I was from a southern state. Thankfully, I am British. One of my country's TV shows. So, yeah, it's just really strong and really powerful impact. So amazing. And Vinette Robinson nails the performance, as does our main leads. Krasko's a good villain. This is the one of the 3 pseudo-historicals that would benefits more from being a pseudo-historical than a 100% historical, as you kind of need Krasko or some sort of villain to try and change time, whilst Demons and Witchfinders could have worked better without alien or sci-fi elements and would have been better as pure historicals, especially Witchfinders. But Rosa kind of needed to be a pseudo-historical, and it's just wonderful. It's also kind of showing both stories, that Rosa and Demons, are showing more recent history from the last century, as opposed to going back in time to the Romans or the ancient Greeks or Marco Polo times, for example. Black Orchid is probably the closest from the classic series historicals to come something like this, whilst previous new series stories, and also Witchfinders, would be along the whole scale, but this time round it's very focusing on the historical elements, but also with some sci-fi elements, especially in the other two. This one, not too much, because it's very Rosa-centred, but they also have to try and stop Krasko for most of the episode. And it's done really well. It's handled really great. Probably works because there's a black woman co-writing it, who's had experience with writing Doctor Who stories before. Not TV, but books, or book short stories anyway. So she's had Doctor Who experience, so yeah, perfect for the job. And she and Chris Chibnall, who co-wrote it, do a fantastic job. It's just so beautiful. And again, the ending is amazing. It's hard-hitting, very hard-hitting, and could be upsetting. But it's still handled really well. The only thing I'm not so keen, I don't like about it, is the pop song they play at the end. I think they could have played a better pop song, but it's still a really hard-hitting end. I mean, maybe if the pop song wasn't played in the credits, if it was just the scenes, then it probably would have been okay, but as it was played in the credits, not so much. The Indian version of the Doctor Who theme was just so good it could be played in the end credits, but this one wasn't so much. I know some people compared it with Vincent and the Doctor, but Vincent and the Doctor is also a fantastic story, by the way. I thought that was amazing. That's probably my favourite Series 5 story after the 11th Hour. That was amazing. And I know lots of people like it more now, in reflection. So I think Rosa is going to get a bit more positive in the future. Same with Demons of the Punjab, I would say. And yes, this is just a beautiful, beautiful story. I loved this episode. Despite the harsh tone and the hard-hitting impacts and how difficult of a watch it is. I mean, this is probably the most difficult story to rewatch, even more than any of the weak ones. Actually, we watched the weak ones with no problem. They're just not that interesting. But Rosa is just fantastic. I suppose the best ones to rewatch were Woman Who Felt Worth, Resolutions, Kerblam and Ghost Monuments, because they're fun and good, whilst Demons and Rosa are a bit more hard-hitting, impactful. They're not quite as fun. There's some funny and enjoyable moments in them, but they're mostly the hard-hitting, serious ones of the series. But they're also the best ones and deliver the greatest emotional weight of the series, besides the death of Grace. In episode 1 being being one of the weights they have to carry throughout the series. The characters have to carry throughout the series, especially Ryan and Graham. But besides that, these two have the greatest impact, and Rosa has delivered it so beautifully, so amazingly, that it is definitely a story for all time from this point onwards. It's a message as well. It's a message for the future. And it's just amazing. I can see why Matt put this as the first Series 11 story on his 100 episodes tag on Universal's video, as his definitive 30, when he was doing his choice for his choice for the Doctors, his 13th Doctor choice, the definitive 13th Doctor story, from up to Resolution, was this one. He chose Woman Who Felt Worth, Kerblam and Demons of the Punjab as well. Don't think he put Resolution on, did he? I don't think so. I think it might have, I don't think so. But certainly this one was his choice for the definitive 13th Doctor spot. So yeah, I can see why he did that, and honestly I think he did a fantastic choice on that, and I think his other 3 choices were also fantastic. No Resolution though, so that's a bit of a disappointment, but still. Or did he? I can't remember. I think I only think he put 4 down, the 4 I mentioned. But yeah, this is a definitive. This is the definitive 13th Doctor story at this point in time, certainly, and it's the definitive pseudo-historical of recent years. Maybe the definitive of recent history. So that's it from my Series 11 ranking. Thank you so much for watching. I'll just recap the list. Number 10 is the Tsuranga Condrum. Number 9 is It Takes You Away. Number 8, Arachnids in the UK. Number 7, the Battle of Ranskoor with Kolos. Number 6, The Witchfinders. Number 5, The Ghost Monument. Number 4, Kerblam. Number 3, The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Number 2, Demons of the Punjab. And number 1, Rosa. So that's it from my Series 11 stuff. So, yeah, we're finished with Series 11 for now. Now we just have to wait for Series 12. In the meantime, I will be continuing watching every single Doctor Who story since The Unearthed Child to Resolution, or whatever is the latest story by that point. And, yeah, of course, I'll be doing the Resolution Blu-ray review, and maybe an unboxing as well, maybe. We'll see. And we'll talk about that. As I said, back to my talk about going in story order. I'll be continuing that. I'm hopefully watching The War Machines later, and Season 3's ranking will be following that. That review and Season 3's ranking will be following on the Retro channel. So you can go check that out if you're going to, so you don't be deprived of Doctor Who for 2019. Besides the Resolution Blu-ray stuff. You can, and the Macroterra stuff. We'll also be doing Macroterra re-review on this channel after the standard review on the Retro channel. I'm re-reviewing Power of the Darkness as well on that channel, by the way. So you can see my 2016 thoughts, 2016-2017 thoughts on it on this channel, and then you can see my 2019 thoughts on it on the Retro channel, either next week or next month. Depends when we get around to it. So anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne YouTube channel.